Joseph Roberson, aka Professor Joe of both King Talk Podcast and the Professor Joe Show. And you are currently listening to King Talk, our unapologetic and transparent discussion on any and all issues related to youth sports. If there's something you'd like to hear discussed, feel free to drop us a line, shoot us a DM, and let us know on IG at King Talk Podcast. That's King Talk Podcast, one word, on IG. You can also find us on Facebook at Facebook. I was going to say Facebook, right? That's because that's what people be doing on there. Facebook at King Talk Podcast and on iHeartRadio and Spotify as well. And I have with me Javarus McConnor. Javarus, what's up with you, man? You good?
What's good, baby?
What's good? What's good, baby? See, why did I just have to do what you did? That's why I'm just here, brother. Hey, look, I do original things, and now I'm just doing something because the younger king did it, and I want to be like him. Okay, so, hey, before we begin today, I just wanted, and Grace, I wanted to share this with you too. I didn't even share this with you. So, I was at a basketball, what was I at? Was it a basketball game? Yeah, basketball game on Saturday, and a young man named Zach, and his father had spoke to me and was like, hey, we've been listening to the podcast and, just sharing some of his thoughts. I asked him for some feedback. I was like, hey, feel free to give me any meaningful feedback you have that you think could improve it, right? And, he shared his thoughts with me. He said he really appreciated Javarus having speakers such as yourself who were just very familiar with the world of athletics and could give not just speculation but meaningful advice. So I want to thank you for your participation because I think it adds a great deal of value to the show, but and to the podcast, and to for listeners to hear, hey, this is someone who lives this life not just as a former athlete at the collegiate level and a special athlete, but also someone who works within this field now, helping people transition from high school to college opportunities and potentially college and beyond. So I wanted to thank you for that, my king. That being said, so I'm speaking with his father, and then I'm leaving, and all of a sudden someone says, Coach. So I turn around, and it's Zach. And he's like, Coach, I listened to the podcast. I listened to him, and Grace, I had been, based on my own desire to find many ways to contribute. I was, debating about how much commitment I could show to all the things in front of me. And, but the reaffirmation was that, knowing that, like, oh, okay, well, if this is just one individual saying that, hey, I'm listening, one young person saying I'm listening, and I just felt that obligation, okay, we got to make sure we get it done then. We got to make sure we get it done. So, I wanted to share that with you too because it really impacted me. And share that with the listeners. Now, a lot of times I talk about how the purpose behind why young people participate in sports, how we view it as parents, how we view it as coaches, and then, ironically, it was my mother-in-law who brought the article by and gave it to my son. And this article is from the Los Angeles Times sports page, from Sunday, September 22nd. And she was telling my son, I really want you to read this. I don't know if he actually even read it, but I sure did. And I think what really grabbed me was the headline of the article. And it says, when football means more than just a game. And so that caught my attention. So I decided it was just important to share it, and maybe we'll read some of the article and discuss it. Just from the perspective, I'm always talking about how it should be. It's bigger than sports. And Javarus, you've been around my son and I when I'm sitting there telling him, like, I have almost little to no interest in how well he dribbles a ball, how well he shoots a ball, how well he catches a ball, how well he runs the ball. It's so much bigger than that for me. It's me trying to help him learn discipline, persistence, commitment. Hey, look, Grace sitting here yelling at me because you're staring at your phone. But Grace, he part of the younger generation, Grace. That's what they do. No, Grace, watch this. I can't say anything to him because half the times when I'm in meetings and we're talking, that's all professionals around me are doing, staring at their phone. But so, that's just kind of life nowadays, especially his generation. They multitask at it. But, okay, so that being said, when football means more than just a game, it says bridges built when Bishop Diego hosts Chicago Hope. So I think Bishop Diego. I think this article actually too is written by Eric Sondheimer, so we could give him credit for the article. So he says, in a dimly lighted parking lot Friday with bags and suitcases sprawled on the ground and the loud clanking sound of a bus engine rattling in their ears, 45 football players from a high school in one of Chicago's toughest areas shed their shoulder pads, removed their blue helmets, and abandoned their sparkling clean white jerseys while trying to make sense of their latest challenge. A game 2 years in the makings, far away from the gun violence and poverty they deal with back home, had been postponed when power went out at Santa Barbara City College. Hey, real quick, the first thing I take note of that sends a message to me, it says a game 2 years in the making. A lot of times whenever we're around something that's happening, to us, we don't really give thought to how that event occurred. So matter of fact, you were talking about going to check out, is it some young person you're working with who's coming down? Where is he coming down here from to play against Sierra Canyon on Saturday?
Oh,
where's he coming from?
Vegas.
Vegas. Now, to us, to me, if I happen to go with you, I'm just going to a game. And it does happen to be against these elite level talents, high school talents. At the same time, some of us never stop to think that, when did the coordination for this event start taking place? And what prompted these two teams to play against each other? Because there's a whole background story to these things. Yeah. So again, it's that reminder that, things happen for a reason, because usually they exist. Hey, why are we doing this podcast? Things exist for a reason. Someone had it as an idea or thought in their mind, and then made it happen or brought it to fruition. So anyway, continuing on, the football team from Chicago Hope Academy had traveled 4.5 hours by plane to Los Angeles from Chicago on Wednesday, then rode 2 hours on a bus to Santa Barbara, arriving past midnight. They stayed 2 nights at a hotel and were scheduled to spend the final 2 nights of their journey with 16 host families after Friday's game against Bishop Diego High. Now, the teams would play Saturday morning in place of a junior varsity game that had been planned. Logistically, it's been nightmarish, Hope coach Chris Millette said. I hope I'm getting his name right. It was awkward enough for host families to take in strangers they briefly met the night before when the teams gathered for dinner. Now the Hope coaches were frantically changing sleeping assignments, trying to keep their starters together. Meanwhile, the two wisecracking 61-year-olds responsible for setting up the game were jovial. Bob Muzakowski, founder and president of Hope, recited the Serenity Prayer in the parking lot. Mick Luckhurst, the special teams coach for Bishop Diego, said, "You couldn't have scripted it better. We wanted to get to know each other. It's the mysterious way of life." Is it okay for me to keep talking? Or, if you at any point decide to, you can interrupt me.
No, I'm just trying to
take in the story.
Visually.
Okay, I got you. I think the first thing, as I continued reading, was first of all, there's these two 60-year-old gentlemen. So one of the things I appreciate about being at the age of 47, I should be able to provide some wisdom and insights to young people. At the same time, I'm still learning in many ways. But what I do recall is when I was younger, I didn't quite appreciate older people around me because I was too busy wanting to live life to sit and listen. And now as I get older, I realize what gray hair really represents. And, I wish I had spent more time listening to the older generation. And now that my grandmother has passed away, I wish I had heard more stories about what life was like for her family, immigrating here from Italy. The cultural experience. So, that's one of when I'm reading, I try to take reflections out of it. What are the lessons learned? What are things that are meaningful, that are resonating in my ear?
Go ahead. I was always the kid that acted like you wasn't listening. Like I used to always had a face like, it's like, you gonna have to use this one day. And essentially, like, all in all, I was definitely listening, and I was putting those, tools in effectively, as I was growing. So it was like never, it was never really me being stubborn. Like, I always listened, even though it may look like, I felt like I wasn't. Right. But like, I always used to apply it, like, in probably like the next week. Like, just as far as like, I used to always get told, like, when you in the room, sit in the front, like, or what they call it, the T, sit in the T. So, like my sophomore year, like I was like, man, I'm starting to sit in the front. You know what I'm saying? Like people used to laugh and joke, but like I used to sit in the front and like I used to really like pay attention. Like I used to be like, for instance, like we used to have a class full of like football players and a couple other quote unquote nerds. I was cool with the nerds too.
Right,
You know what I'm saying? Like I didn't want to be in a group full of football guys. For what?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like I'm setting myself up for late work, possibly fail in it, you know what I'm saying? So I always took that in advantage. It's like never just never put yourself in a box. Always, you know what I'm saying, think outside the box and just be.
And I think from my observations of you, watching you over the past, what has it been like? Maybe when did I first meet you? What year did you come here?
14.
Okay, so over the past 5-6 years, I would say that is something that is a blessing of your personality characteristics that is going to serve you well. That you, I think you can interact with a very diverse range of people. I feel like you do kind of play the role where you're not listening, or where you do that with food too. That's a whole different conversation. But you always pretend that you don't intend to try something. But in the end, I know Javarus is wise enough that he's not going to not experience what this may be like just out of ignorance. He's going to try and see whether this works for him. So, you know, I admire that of you, because I think if more people could do that in their youth, it would benefit them long term. Just in terms of even the relationships, you're very powerful in your relationships. So sometimes when I'm sitting around you and I hear you on the phone talking to these individuals who are in very, you notice I say individuals and left it vague. I left it vague. You caught that, right? I didn't put all your business out there. But when you're interacting with these individuals who, for the average human, would be hard to gain access to, you know, I kind of marvel that, like, oh, this young man has created a strong level of networking for him that at some point in your life most definitely will result in levels of prosperity. So, you know, that's wise. But some of these guys are 20, 25, 30 years your senior, and you're still able to pick up the phone and have conversations with them as their peer as it relates to the field you're in. So that's something you most definitely should be proud of. Hey, okay, now with this article, one of the things I like is this, though. So what I'm taking away from this is that the team from Bishop Diego, they weren't just hosting the team from Chicago Hope in terms of having them visit. They had arranged a true cultural experience in terms of, Grace, you over there shaking your head, you know, like in terms of we're going to have host families where even though we're competing against each other, right? Because this is football, and we use synonyms for football like war. Yeah. Because there is a battle. Football is one of the last few gladiator sports, even with some of the rules they're changing, which make you wonder. But I am in favor of safety. But that being said, but you're having kids come in and stay in the homes of their opponents, their adversaries, in one sense, if you know, using certain terminology. So I mean, for me, that really gets across. Again, it's more than just a game, because I can do that. I can compete against someone. I can give you my all, and yet still have a positive interaction with you and a concern for your well-being, even though at this moment I intend to defeat you. Yeah. And I would hope to come out as the victor, because that's what I prepare for. And I think that's something lost in sports sometimes. People don't realize that. Like, and I'd especially say that as I relate to some of the obnoxious, or have observed some of the obnoxious behaviors of parents, coaches, and players at times. Like, you can come do everything you can to defeat your opponent with a level of class. Matter of fact, this coach had even made a statement, I don't know where it's at in the article, where he was telling them, hey, I want you to go basically hit them. He is like, and then help them up again. You know what I'm saying? So, here, let me continue reading and see if I come across it. So it's saying, it's Thursday morning and Hope is holding a final walkthrough on Bishop Diego's grass athletic field while classes are in session. The players, each wearing blue t-shirts with the word serve on the back, gather around Luckhurst, a former Atlanta Falcons kicker who conceived with Muzikowski the idea of bringing the teams together. The men had known each other since meeting in their mid-20s at a ministry in Bolivia, trying to help orphans. For the last 2 years, they've tried to make this amazing dream, as Luckhurst describes it, come true. Musikowski was the inspiration for the 2001 movie Hardball, in which Keanu Reeves plays a Little League coach from the Cabrini Green Housing Project in Chicago. Musikowski says he is on a first-name basis with Barack Obama, whom he calls Barry, and Mark Walter, managing partner of the Dodgers. Both are supporters of Chicago Hope. Luckhurst retired from the NFL at 29 and became an NFL commentator in his native England. He wrote a column for the Daily Mail and Daily Telegraph under different names, he says, and made more money than in his final season in the NFL. Welcome, Luckhurst tells the players in his British accent. It's not just about football. Once you're between the lines, you can play hard and still hit. But it's what happens outside the lines that's really cool for me. We're in a little different environment than you are in Chicago. We feel blessed to be in this environment and to share this with you. Musikowski tells the players, let's knock them down and help them up. Luckhurst explains the philosophy he's hoping everyone adopts. I'm trying to beat you. I'm trying to be the best I can. I hope we take that onto the field and we take it in life. Let me see if there's much more I want to read that I feel would be important. Oh yeah, why not? Let me read just a couple more paragraphs and then we'll talk about it. More than half of Hope's players have never flown on a plane. There was a distinctive wow heard in the back of their Southwest Airlines flight when it took off from Chicago Midway International Airport, according to players. My teammates were telling me I would be scared, quarterback Trevor Land said. I enjoyed the takeoff and landing because it was like a roller coaster. That being said, I don't like that on planes. Players and coaches talked about seeing the Pacific Ocean for the first time. I'm going to take my shirt off, receiver Neil Campbell said. Said Land, I'm not really big on water, but I'll probably dip my feet in it. Assistant coach Charles Perry didn't know when he was going to take a swim, only that it was going to happen no matter what. I will swim in the Pacific Ocean before I leave, he said. It doesn't matter what time or how cold. I just need a picture with me in it. He should have said I need a picture with the gram, but we get the point. I need a picture for the gram. Chicago Hope, a non-denominational co-ed Christian school of 287 in the near west side, opened in the fall of 2005 on the former grounds of a Catholic parish. It's located in one of the most crime-plagued of Chicago's 77 neighborhoods. 2 years ago, there was a shooting outside the school stadium and the teams forfeited rather than play there. 2 weeks ago, there was another shooting near the school, which is adjacent to a homeless center. Musikowski's mission is to prepare his students for adulthood and teach Christian values. He said, there are no locks on school lockers. If there's anything stolen, I have to pay for it. More than 95% of the players on the football team are African American. Most are on scholarship. Bishop Diego, which was a picturesque campus about 4 miles west of Old Mission, Santa Barbara, is a Catholic school of 260 boys and girls with tuition of $15,000. I hope to realize the different lives people may have in this country and how it affects them, Bishop Diego receiver Luke Maho said, and hope I can learn from this experience and become better and more understanding of persons of different cultures. All right, and then I'll wrap it up there. I think that right there says a lot. And then one of the other headlines says building a bridge. And I think sometimes people, really don't see that that's one of the greater purposes of sports and athletics. I think it was even the case for myself in college, and I've always been accepting of diversity and multiculturalism. But for many people, sports, in this case football, becomes one of the first times that they really interact with diverse crowds. Matter of fact, you went to Winston-Salem. What was your team like down there? Did y'all have diversity? Would you say it was a diverse team, or?
We had a lot of black athletes.
Okay.
But we had different cultural backgrounds.
Is Winston-Salem at HBCU?
Mm-hmm.
I think people will find that interesting. I think sometimes the notion, understandably so, is that every player at a historically black college or university is black, African American, whatever terminology someone would choose to use. But that's often not the case.
Nah, it's not. And it's actually grown. You know what I'm saying, to be more diverse, and it's still growing continually. But the main thing is, I think people are starting to see is football is football.
Right.
You know, like at one point in time, like HBCU was known as like, oh, we're going to listen to the band or watch
Right,
the cheerleader. You know
right,
what I'm saying?
right.
Now it's predominantly like good football. You know,
Right.
and it's always been like that. But it's just always had a stereotype.
Right.
And stereotypes are hard to break. You know, like it's just a weird thing. It's kind of like Adidas and Nike. People will always consider Nike over Adidas just because of the brand. You know what I'm saying? Like, of course you're gonna have some people that think, oh, Adidas, no, but overall, people gonna go with Nike. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Hey, watch this though, my brother. Watch this. I'm just giving you credit that the metaphor you came up with for believing in stereotypes was an Adidas and Nike metaphor. I'm gonna give you some credit for that one. Hey, that being said, I'm from upstate New York. I'm a 70s baby. I grew up in the 80s with hip hop and Run DMC, so I have a full I have enough Adidas ensembles.
yeah,
You know, I mean, I got enough shell toes if you want to come through the crib
yeah.
to share a couple, you know. But no, I hear what you're saying, because there is a, especially for athletes too.
It's more like superior.
Right.
Like Division I has always been the
Yeah.
superior standard, or you
Yeah.
know what I'm saying, like the ACC, the SEC. It's always been that standard.
Where were we at somewhere recently when was I with you when someone even made the comment, like talking about team apparel of different schools? Like, I don't know why they switched to Adidas. They should have stayed Nike.
Yeah.
I remember someone
I forgot what it might have been UCLA.
and at the Oregon State game. You see
it
that?
might-
Oh.
yeah, because you know UCLA was Adidas. They switched over to Under Armour.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
okay. Maybe that's what the conversation
But
was.
Under Armour gave them the largest apparel deal
Right.
like ever, I think.
They said these are business decisions. We
Yeah.
made business decisions. Hey, in reference to the article I was reading, though, I just think, again, that's one of the hardest. I don't want to beat a dead horse, because I kind of bring that up a lot in terms of really being aware of the purpose of playing sports. I just think people, every day, since this is what I do for a living, I just encounter people who get it all wrong. Like, everyone thinks it's of everyone. And when I say everyone, not literally everyone, but I think 95% of the athletes I work with think they go into the league. And maybe I'll say you kind of do have to approach it that way, I get it. But in terms of your behaviors, you could demonstrate through the attention you give your academics that you have clarity as to the rarity of people making it to those outcomes, right? Even with coaches, like I'm kind of exhausted with coaches encouraging students to take whatever classes it takes to be eligible, versus if you had clarity that very few of these young people are going to ever do this for a living, and that the true benefit of them participating is to walk away with their education, then why would you encourage them to take random classes solely to take classes and be eligible to compete, versus take classes that can maybe lead to desirable career outcomes, that have a direct relationship to their major, that have a direct relationship to allowing them to explore their options, have a direct relationship to them becoming more marketable, have a direct relationship to them becoming more aware. And so the thing for me is how short-sighted people are about what is the purpose of athletics. Because there are very few things as dominant in the culture of humanity as athletics. Athletics is one of those few things that most people at some point are going to encourage their children to participate in, or most people at some level. I don't care whether it's like with football, Pop Warner, or whether it's high school, whether it's college. I don't care what sport it's in. We're generally, as a culture, as a society, and even as a global society, going to encourage a kid to compete at some level of sport at some point. And if we really understood the point of it, I just think it could be life-changing for people, and it could change the culture of society.
And you know, a lot of coaches and a lot of people, they always say the best athletes are out in the streets.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and that goes a long way, because you know, if you look at it, it always been that story of, oh man, it was this cat that was better than Jordan. You know, like it was this
Right,
cat.
right, yeah.
It was this cat that was better than
I know some of the
you
cats.
know,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
and it's crazy because in all sense they probably were.
Right.
And you know, like you wouldn't hear Michael Jordan saying that, but you know what I'm saying?
Right,
Like
right.
it just goes to tell you like they gotta show me, they gotta come to the NBA and show me. You know what I'm saying? They gotta come to the NFL and show me.
Right.
And with that being said, it takes not only an athlete, I think it just takes like a wholesome like human being. Like you gotta be knowledgeable about everything when it comes to being a professional or you know what I'm saying, even a collegial athlete. Like you have to really be diligent at your studies and at your craft.
Right.
You know, like it's almost, to me, basketball is even harder because basketball is a skill. You know what I'm saying? Like it's instincts and a skill you have to, you know what I'm saying, like work on like endless hours. Football is more of natural athleticism, but like, you know, like just think about the sports that you really gotta put in extra skill time. Like,
right.
you know what I'm saying? Like, but people don't really think about it, and that's what I took into consideration. I was like I was telling before, like it's just all about time management and like opportunity. You know, like
are you prepared when your opportunity arises?
Prepared?
Now, one thing you said just now was skill, and I get your point. But one of the things I just want to emphasize, because I don't want parents not catching on, because I also see too many parents who think, first of all, they don't really know the sport. So they teach their children what they're aware of as it relates to the sport. And oftentimes, so with basketball, it's scoring. Right? I'm going to teach my kid know how to shoot. My kid know how to dribble. And so therefore, why isn't my kid the one on the court all the time? But what you didn't get, though, is this. That's where the classroom comes in, and the ability to learn. Because no matter how much skill you have, and the reason I'm tying this in, because we were just talking about, too, the people who will never play in high school, never play at a collegiate level, never play at a professional level, but are technically more athletic and more gifted and more talented than people who play in high school, play in college, and play in the league. But maybe you never taught your kid about, I could pick up something random like being a team player and bringing a positive energy and spirit to the team and to the group as a collective. You never taught your kid to be diligent in the classroom. So therefore, when a coach is trying to implement a play on the spot, your kid doesn't have the mental fortitude and the mental stamina to be able to pick up this play at this moment and execute it in the game. So guess what? Therefore, at this crucial moment in the game, your kid won't be in. But here's this kid who some people interpret to be less gifted, less talented, but because mentally they are capable of processing this in the moment, they're going to be the one who gets utilized. And I just think people overlook that far too often, where they don't realize, okay, you can run a 4-2, but you didn't respect the game enough to realize, no, there is some intellect to the game. So you needed to understand what play was called. And let's be real, sometimes when you hear a quarterback call a play, it sounds like a foreign language, right? And if you don't study it, it's just as foreign as calculus to someone. So that being said, you call a play, so now you need to understand what this play is. Now you need to understand what adjustment to the play occurs based on the coverage you see in front of you. Now, you need to understand what adjustment happens based on not just the coverage, but how the defender immediately in front of you positions itself. You want inside release, but he's positioned inside of you. And your quarterback, then you need to anticipate and figure out who is my quarterback and what is his preferences. And you have to calculate all that in a second, and that requires a level of intellect.
See, I would say the prime example, I studied the game. A prime example of that would have been, no shade to Chris Webber, but the national championship.
Not that timeout call.
The timeout call.
That wasn't just on him, though, but I hear you.
But you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
like,
I hear you.
Just the mental capacity, the process.
I don't have no timeouts.
Yeah, I don't have any timeouts.
Even with my teammate on the bench saying, call a timeout, no, because we don't have a timeout. And I definitively know that.
Exactly.
Yes, I hear you.
You know what I'm saying? Like let's be honest. If they were playing, let's just say, Duke, you know what I'm saying? Or just anybody from Carolina, I feel like a Grant Hill or Christian Laettner would have been more knowledgeable. Like, I don't got any time. You
You
know what I'm
say
saying? Like,
Bobby Hurley wouldn't have called that timeout?